the city council meeting. Appreciate everybody being here. It looks like a nice crowd tonight, so we'll get right into it. We do have a quorum. We'll call the meeting to order. I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Howitt if she'll lead us in the pledge and invocation.
You'd stand and join me, please, in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'd bow your heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, today we join together for the business of the city. We ask that you be with us, guide us, help us to make wise decisions that are pleasing not only to the citizens, but that are financially stable. We also ask that you look over our first responders, watch after them, and keep them safe. In your heavenly name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, council, we've got two sets of minutes to approve tonight. Did everybody have an opportunity to look those over?
Mayor,
Go. Move to approve the amendments from February the 28th and March the 5th.
second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, tonight we are going to move item E2 up right before public hearing, if that's okay with you, council. I'm going to ask Mark McAnally and Ken Hughes of Hewitt-Zollers to come forward and
Which one? I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, what?
E2. E2. I'm sorry. We're going to let them go first.
If you don't mind, Mayor, I'd like the opportunity to introduce our
Clay.
consultant team for the Grayson County Thoroughfare Plan. Roughly a year ago, the county, the MPO, cities of Denison and Sherman signed a cooperative agreement to develop a countywide thoroughfare plan. Since that time, they have been diligently working, looking at demographics, modeling the traffic on the network, and have developed a plan that they would like to present to you this evening. So, I'd like to turn it over to Ken Hughes with Hewitt-Zollers to present the plan.
Thank you, Clay. Good afternoon, Ken. How are you doing?
Ken Hughes, Hewitt-Zollers. Got Mike McAnally with me, also for moral support. The judges came along to kind of keep us between the lines here. So.
Pretty wide-roaded.
We'd like to give you an update about where we've accomplished here. Now, as soon as I get the clicker working. Okay, as far as the project status, we made County Technical Advisory Committee presented demographics to them. We've got some comments back from them. We'll be making those adjustments, be going back to the TAC probably sometime next week. We'll get those schedules worked out. And then we've been in the process of updating, we've updated the MPO policy board. A couple weeks ago, we also briefed the county commissioners last week. And so now we're kind of basically taking this, our road project on a road show, just, presenting it to everybody and picking up comments along the way. At this point in time, I'd like to turn over to Mike McAnally, who's going to talk about the planning aspects.
Good evening. Well, the transportation needs for Grayson County. We're here tonight because part of that entails coordinating with the plans that the cities already have developed and adopted. We want to make sure that everything syncs together. Cross-coordination amongst cities for their areas. Obviously, you've got your corporate limits and your extraterritorial jurisdiction where you have authority over thoroughfare development. The county's interested in how the cities all work together, and then the unincorporated area outside the ETJ, that is where the county's authority for subdivision platting takes preeminence. It's about for future roadway development and acquiring right-of-way or enabling the acquisition of right-of-way through the subdivision process. It's a guide for public investment. Thoroughfare planning is for everyone. The timeline is out there as far as you want to take it. If the folks who were the trail drivers had not thought ahead about where things ought to go, we would have a lot worse problems than we do today. So it's a tool for coordination, it needs to be updated every 5 to 7 years. Our study area is all of Grayson County. There are about 128,000 people in that limits now, and 17 municipalities that we're working with to bring together a plan that represents all the cities as well as the county. I'll turn it back over to Ken.
Thank you, Mike. Let me tell you a little bit how we started this process with the thoroughfare plan. What we started was basically a map of the existing roadways of the county, then overlaid on top of that the thoroughfare plans for City of Denison, Gunter, Howe, Sherman, and then Van Alstyne, and basically trying to connect those up. In that, we plotted all the tollways along the area, the Grayson County Tollway, all the freeways, then all the major arterials, principal arterials, and then the minor arterials, and to get basically a roadway network that's going to basically to the county's ultimate build-out, much past my lifetime, for the next 50 to 100 years. So it's a very much long-term project. The typical roadway sections we looked at for the principal and major arterials, basically 121-foot right-of-way, 6-lane divided roadway. It's the same typical section for both the principal and the major arterials. The difference between those two is basically the design speed. Design speed for the principal is higher, probably 50 miles per hour plus, and then for the major, probably more in the 40 mile per hour range. For the principal arterials, we'll have deceleration lane, right turn lanes into developments. And then minor arterial, 4-lane divided, about 86-foot of right-of-way. And then local street, we're assuming just basically a 50-foot right-of-way section on those. We don't have the local streets on our map. We focused on minor arterials and up. So basically, we've got exhibits in the back of the room here you can take a look at, and we'll be around if you have any questions or comments. But basically, the major thoroughfares, the north-south thoroughfares, starting from the east side of the county, State Highway 160, US 69, US 75, State Highway 289, the Grayson County Tollway, then also US 377 on the far west side of the county. Then the east-west thoroughfares starting on the south side, FM 121, the 902, then US 82, and then the far north portion of the Grayson County Tollway going into Denison. Basically, part of this roadshow is to pick up comments along the way. And we've gotten comments, we continue to get comments along the way. We just received comments from Denison just this afternoon. And then the comments from the municipalities, other municipalities. We're in the process of, once we get through all this and we get the demographics worked out, we'll update the travel demand model for the entire county and then submit that to Texas Department of Transportation. As far as the funding sources, there's multiple funding sources, and we'll be continuing to work with the county and the judge and work our way through those. But everything from developer funding, bonds, the county vehicle registration, all the different categories for TxDOT, all the different, all through category 12 there. And then we've got, those are kind of the traditional funding sources, and we have non-traditional, basically tolling, like with private developer. City of Cibolo outside of San Antonio is actually working with a private developer to implement a private toll road on the east side of San Antonio there. Then congressional or legislative priority funding, other known as earmarks. And then county vehicle registration fee optimization. Right now the fee is $10 per vehicle, and state law allows you to go up to $30 per vehicle, so we're not recommending that, but it's something that, the county might want to consider. Transportation reinvestment zones that you can designate along the roadways. Then state infrastructure bank loans. Then any potential new federal funding. Washington, D.C. is talking about a lot of different options to proceed on with funding, and we'll just have to keep an eye on D.C. and find out kind of where the ball lands there. As far as the next steps, we'll be meeting with Noel, the TxDOT district engineer, meeting with him, see what options are out there. Transportation planning department, meet with them. And then once we identify those projects, we'll identify the funding sources and see how they can go along there. So at this point, turn it back to Clay. If you guys have any questions, we'd be glad to answer any.
Any questions, council?
I'm not on the council, but I have a question. So will the deliverables, when we're done with this project, be sufficient to update the transportation piece of our comprehensive master plan?
Yes, we'll have this map, which we are anticipating all the cities in Grayson County adopting,
Okay.
along with a document about how to design roadways in Grayson County. There'll be both a major minor arterial portion to that as well as a local portion. The major minor arterial portion of it will be adopted with the plan itself. The local roads, we'll leave it up to the individual cities whether or not they want to adopt that portion of it.
Gotcha. The reason that's important is, are these mics on? The reason that's important is we've taken steps, there are probably 12 or 13 different modules or chapters in our comprehensive master plan. One of those is transportation, which we're covering through this. Another one is parks, which we're covering through a separate updated parks master plan. So there are components of our comprehensive master plan that are being updated on a piecemeal basis now instead of, all 13 chapters at once like we did in 2008, 2009. So I just wanted to point out that the work that they're doing here not only helps us in our planning efforts in terms of identifying the, major and minor arterials, things like that, but actually is a part of our planning document that I suspect that we'll bring back together and codify this along with our Parks Master Plan and the other elements that we've done kind of on this piecemeal basis. So, all right. Thank you guys for your work.
Thank you. I'd like to turn it over to Judge Majors for a few words.
Well, he talked about questions. What are the questions?
Yeah,
That's
I was,
everybody. So, first, in this is Grayson County's first thoroughfare plan. Our good friends in Collin County have a saying, and their saying is, we have the lowest tax rate in the state. But they don't complete that sentence. And the rest of that sentence is, but the worst roads. So my point to you is that we have an opportunity with this thoroughfare plan to bring connectivity to Grayson County while we still have green pastures here and not a bunch of build out, and we're doing that. I want to have the opportunity to thank Sherman. Sherman is participating in this financially with $40,000. The Denison put in $20,000 and the county $80,000 to bring this together. So just a real quick update, Mr. Chair. I found out Friday of last week, and I had a chance, I'm going to tell you this morning. Representative Phillips called me. The MPO boundaries were expanded to include all of Grayson County. What that means for us here in Grayson County is about is that right, Clay, $600,000 a year in road revenues for the MPO area. So that's good news. I was in Austin. The reason I wanted to say, I was in Austin last Thursday with Tex 21. I had the chance to meet with the chief engineer of TxDOT, Bill Hale. Most of you know Bill. Bill was here several years ago. He's the guy that built the High Five in Dallas. And we have an opportunity. And I think we have a window of opportunity, but there's a big debate going on right now at the TTC regarding tolling right now. As a county judge, I have a little different attitude about tolling. I don't particularly care for disposable diapers, but when I was a father of 4, I was glad I had them, right? So tolls are a tool in our toolbox. But the difference in Grayson County tolling and NTTA is the tolls remain here in Grayson County. So we're working on the extension of the North Dallas Tollway, which is a conversation for a different day. But my point is, this debate is raging primarily on LBJ in Dallas and I-35 in Austin. And I will tell you, there is a disconnect between local leadership and Austin leadership about what to do with that information. What that is an opportunity that if we can get these projects teed up and ready to go, which we'll be discussing down the road, and Councilman Steele, to your question, it is my hope, and I believe that the county will participate in some of these funding, which we've never done before as a county, in some of these major projects in the other areas. But that's still to be worked out once this plan gets done. My message is simply this. For years, many of us in this room have been involved in transportation planning, and what was the one thing we always never had? Money, right? The money, I believe, the money has been allocated. We are on the statewide tip for these programs, for the 75 project. The money is allocated. I believe there is a window, again, as this debate rages in Austin about what to do with these big projects, that if we can get our projects documented, teed up, and ready to go, we can garnish those funds. If we don't, in my family, we have teenage boys, and all I can tell you, when we share, the 12-year-old goes hungry. I'll just tell you that. So my concern here is, if we don't move quickly and deftly as a community, those projects will suck the oxygen out of the room and take a lot of funds that are dedicated to smaller communities. And that's the message. Again, I want to thank the mayor for his leadership on the MPO, and all of you guys. Sherman does a great job in transportation planning, and we appreciate your support.
Thank you, Judge. Appreciate you guys coming out. All right, at this time, we'll open public hearing. Linda, if you'll read B1 for us, please.
Amendment to agreement with Texas Instruments Incorporated for the abatement of ad valorem property taxes for equipment within Industrial Reinvestment Zone number 042013-1, City of Sherman, Texas.
Mary?
Yes, at the March 5th council meeting, the city council set this public hearing for a proposed amendment to the tax abatement agreement with Texas Instruments on equipment that is warehoused at the Sherman facility. The original abatement was for 5 years at 55% a year. We may extend it by law for an additional 5 years. Over the next 5 years, the total taxes, assuming the current rate at the current value, on the estimated value of about $10 million, is $213,000, with the benefit to the taxpayer of about $117,000, and the city realizing about $96,000. This amendment will be voted on later in the agenda tonight, and Kelly Haley is here from Texas Instruments to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mary. Is there anyone here to address this item this evening? Okay. Linda, if you'll read B2 for us, please.
Ordinance 6101, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman designating a certain area as Industrial Reinvestment Zone number 032018-01, City of Sherman, Texas, providing for the establishment of agreements within the zone and other matters relating thereto, providing findings of fact, providing a severability clause, providing an effective date for the commencement of the reinvestment zone and this ordinance, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. This is a public hearing for the creation of a tax reinvestment zone containing the property of Westmore Solar. The Tax Reinvestment Committee recommended the creation and abatement of taxes in the zone. The agreement calls for a 5-year abatement at 50% per year. Total taxes are about $238,000, with the benefit to the taxpayer of about $119,000, and the same to the city. The agreement will be considered separately on the April 2nd agenda after a public hearing. This ordinance only approves the creation of the zone.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here to address this item this evening?
My name is Aaron Wilson. I'm here to
Okay.
speak on behalf of the project, should you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Okay. Linda, if you'll read B3 for us.
Ordinance 6102, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman amending Section 8, subsection 5A, ordinance number 2280, so as to grant a specific use permit to allow a two-family dwelling duplex in a C1 Retail Business District, Central Business District at 205, 209, and 211 East Jones Street, being part of Lot 7, Block 14, Original Town Plat. Gerardo and Gima Guano and Jesus Pachillo, owners, providing for a repealer clause, providing that this specific use permit shall be granted subject to certain conditions, providing a penalty not to exceed $2,000, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah, this is a request to create a duplex in an existing building that formerly was a duplex and then converted to single family. They want to go back to a duplex, so instead of a zone change, the Planning and Zoning Board recommended the specific use permit, so if it ever goes away, it'll be commercial like the rest of the block there. They voted unanimous to approve this.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. Is there anyone here to address this item? Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else? All right. Wonder if you'll read B4 for us.
Ordinance 6103, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman amending Section 12, ordinance number 2280, so as to include certain properties within the SF1 Single Family Residential District in the 200 block of Hillary Drive and the 4900 block of Knollwood Road, being lots 1, 2, and 3, Block 1, replat of blocks 2 through 9, North Creek Addition, Section 1, and all of Block 1 of the replat of North Creek Addition, Section 1, Young Enterprises LP owners, and Helvey Wagner Surveying Incorporated surveyor, providing for a repealer, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Scott?
Yeah, this is a request to go from C1 to R1, or SF1, to allow the construction of 4 new homes out by Knollwood in the city. So the board recommended unanimous approval, subject to the staff review letter.
Is there anyone here to address this item this evening? Okay. Linda, if you read B5 for us.
Ordinance 6104, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman amending Section 12, ordinance number 2280, so as to include certain properties within the CO Office District at 1200 North East Street, being 0.316 acres in the J.B. McInerney Survey, abstract number 763, and being all of lots 1 and 2, Block 2, Kerrs Bloomfield Addition, and a 40-foot by 145-foot tract of land, KS&D R3 LLC owners, Taryn Berthoff, representative, Austin Hoover designer, and Helvey Wagner Surveying Incorporated surveyor, providing for a repealer, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda.
This is a request to go from R1 to CO office zoning. This is formerly a church. It's across the street from Martin Luther King Park. The board voted unanimous to approve this, subject to the staff review letter, and the Board of Adjustment did grant the variances for the existing setbacks.
Is there anyone here to address this item this evening?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, Scott, I didn't hear you mention a privacy fence that is the problem that I have.
That was one of the exceptions that was granted.
Okay.
So that's finished.
All right.
Was that through the Board of Adjustments?
Yes. Yeah, that's final at Board of Adjustment. City Council has the zone change request.
Okay. We need to address her one after we finish the entire, that's what I mean. Okay.
All right. Is there anyone else to
Just clarifying stuff.
address this item this evening?
Glad to do it.
All right. Linda, B6 for us.
Ordinance 6105, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sherman amending Section 12, ordinance number 2280, so as to include certain properties within the R2 multifamily residential district in the 200 block of West Lake Street and West Forest Avenue, and the 1700 block of South Elm Street and South Crockett Street, being all of Block 6 of the replat of Blocks 4, 5, 6, 15, 17, 29, 30, 31, 40, and 41 of Southside Addition. R2 Concepts LLC owners, Alejandro H. Pena, Jr. designer, and Preston Trail Land Surveying surveyor, providing for a repealer, finding that the meeting at which this ordinance is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Scott?
This is a zone change request to go from manufacturing M1 to R2 multifamily. That's a block between the church and 903 Brewery. They want to build duplexes on each lot, and there's going to be 16 lots. Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval, subject to the staff review letter, 7-0.
All right. Is there anyone here to address this item this evening? All right. At this time, we'll close public hearing and consider the adoption of ordinance numbers 6101, 6102, 6103, 6104, and 6105. Council? Any questions? Any discussion?
Nothing on this end.
For me.
Okay. All right, can we get a motion?
Move for approval. Second. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we are down to the consent agenda. These items are considered to be routine and will be enacted in one motion without discussion unless a council member or citizen requests a specific item be discussed and voted on separately. Agenda includes items C6, C7, E5, E9, E10, E11, E12, E13, and E14. We are going to remove item C8 from the consent agenda. Brandon?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, C8 was originally on the consent agenda, but the caption, there was a misprint in the caption. It says, the buying the equipment for solid waste from HGAC through Texas Local Government Purchasing Cooperative, and then by board in parentheses. HGAC, Texas Local Government, and by board are three separate entities. The equipment is being bought through HGAC from Chastang Enterprises, doing business as Chastang's Bayou City Auto Car. It's still for the purchase of the same equipment, and the entity through which we were making the purchase was listed on the agenda, so you can still just amend the motion to include the correct information.
Okay.
And I think that it's been corrected, so when Linda reads the caption for the resolution, it will have the correct information. And so the motion can be motion to approve or deny Resolution 6357 as read.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and
Resolution 6357, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing the purchase of a 2019 auto car ACX 64 and related equipment for the Solid Waste Department from Chastain Enterprises, doing business as Chastain's Bayou City Auto Car, through the Houston Galveston Area Council of Governments, HGAC, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Can you explain what an auto car is?
We want to know what an auto car is.
So this is there's two parts to putting together a trash truck. One is the chassis, the other is the body and the loader and all that. So that's what this is doing, is purchasing. The body is actually C7, and the auto car is the other piece of that. So these two resolutions together will be combined to create a full trash truck, automated trash truck.
All right.
It's not like we're going to have a Google trash truck
No, this is,
running around.
no, we will not
Auto,
be
okay.
doing that.
All right. I move to approve the consent agenda.
C8.
Second.
And C8 as amended.
Okay.
Second as amended.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Do we need to go back and pick up the entire consent? Okay. All right. So we've got the consent agenda with the balance of the items there. Can we get a motion on consent?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve as written.
Second.
Just a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We are down to read that for us.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing execution of an amendment to the agreement with Texas Instruments Incorporated for an extension of the abatement of ad valorem property taxes for improvements within Industrial Reinvestment Zone Number 042013-01, City of Sherman, Texas, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay. Thank you, Linda.
Yes, this is the for the abatement of taxes, the extension of the abatement of taxes for Texas Instruments.
Okay. Council, any questions? Motion on this item?
Make a motion. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Linda, if you'll read C2 for us.
Resolution 6351, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman approving and supporting the issuance of a Law Enforcement Academy license from the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, TCOL, for the creation of a Law Enforcement Academy at the Sherman Police Department, providing for an appointment of an advisory board, and authorizing the submission of an application by the Chief of the Sherman Police Department or his designee, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Chief?
Mayor, Council.
prelude.
Entrance.
Yeah,
Your
look at
entrance.
that. I appreciate that.
Walk-up music, not everybody music.
So, the creation of a law enforcement academy with the Sherman Police Department stems from several things. But what we know is that over the past 3 years, we spent about $90,000 sending different recruits to different police academies. And not all of those recruits are still with us. So we looked at some different metrics as to what we needed to get out of a law enforcement academy, and that being the quality of the training, the time that it takes not only to get recruits into an academy, but through an academy, the finances, which was a major piece of it, and the physical resources that they have. We knew we needed to address these issues. We were very specific in that we wanted to address the content and curriculum that right now we have no input in. Our standard is well above that of just meeting, passing the state test. And we wanted to be able to have this input. One of the requirements from the state anyway is that our department trains to a certain level. And as a contract provider for T-Cole, which is where we're at now, we can only do certain things. With the umbrella of a police academy, that would allow us to do any form of training. We could cover the gamut, and we could provide that to other agencies. The reality is that we have 17 instructors right now in-house with a class that we can put on. We have instructors that can teach that class to add instructors. They can cover every topic listed in the T-Cole curriculum. So the reality is that we don't anticipate really adding anything to our training budget. What we look to do is to be able to make our training budget go further. What we want to address is on two ends of what the actual police academy, as you would think of it, is. And that would be to get our recruits into the academy in a timely fashion. And then we want to know that when they're in that academy, that the time that they're spending there, the content, the curriculum, is what it needs to be in a timely manner. And so to be able to have control of that is one of the things that we want to make sure we can address. Again, not to add to the department's training budget, but to make sure that we can do more with the training budget we have. Spending that much for recruits in a 3-year term means that other officers are not getting the specialized training that they need, or that we would definitely like them to have to serve our citizens. So we believe that this is a way that we'd be able to make that go further. Analyzing it and giving room for contingency, maybe $3,000 would be an expense, maybe. If we had to pay an instructor to come in because we just couldn't feel that, that's not anticipated given the number of instructors we have and the leniency we have to manipulate their schedules to ensure that they're teaching as an assignment. So it is part of what their tour of duty would be for that day, to be able to teach that. It's not something that we anticipate going on throughout a year, around 4 months with a number of instructors. So what we look to do is to have a lot of people chipping in a little bit to make this happen. And we don't look to, you may think of a large city and them having a police academy which requires a full staff. We're not having a police academy that frequently, and we won't be doing that many courses to where it would require that. So we believe that we'd be able to put on additional courses at a lower cost as well, because we'd be hosting them. The class range for our police academy would probably be around 10 people. It's very manageable. The city of Allen is going to allow us to use their driving course, which is state-of-the-art, for free. TCOG is going to allow us space in their building to conduct classes for free, because what we do not want to do is to outpace our own building when we're trying to make it last as long as we can. So the things that we want to do are to try to increase the efficiency that we are spending money. So we've got support from other agencies. They'd be paying around $1,000 per recruit to send them here. So the reality is that would probably be money that could help buy coffee or something of that nature, more administrative, that because the state requires that we go ahead and do a lot of this training anyway. So a lot of these things we can already do, and we have the staff to do it. We've worked through several of the requirements for TCOL. One of the things in talking with other municipalities is that the state likes to see a formal vote of support from their governing body. So that's why we come to you with this tonight. This doesn't lock us in. It doesn't cost us anything. We're just seeking the support from our council to move forward with the project. Be happy to answer any questions you have any.
Chief, you answered my question there at the very last, but I wanted to make sure we're just voting here to support the application process, so to speak. At some point, we will see a finalized plan, budget, the whole 9 yards as to the expense and things that will be involved with this before will this come back to us again, or is this, we're giving it our stamp of approval start to finish at this point?
I have my answer. I'll let Zach answer, and then I'll follow up with that.
So what I would say is we could do that two ways. Really, the only thing that it would take to come back to you as far as budgetary concerns would be to say, for us to be able to iron out whether or not there's a time that we would not be able to have an instructor teach. It's kind of like the building renovations that we've done, having our in-house crews do a lot of that. Is very similar. Our officers would just be there on assignment to do that, manipulating their workload, and if they had to teach 3 days 1 week, that's just part of their work for that week. Short of that, there would be no additional cost. We have the vehicles, we supply all the resources anyway. We've got the gun range, we have classroom space, and Alan's providing the driving course. There's really no additional costs, other than, again, if we could not provide an instructor.
So, and any cost that we would have is already built into the budget, because we'll be avoiding the costs of sending our cadets to the academy. So no budget amendment effect there. I think what we would like to do, as we do with any program, much like what we're going to hear in a few minutes from Nate, is when we establish a new program like this, we come back periodically to give you an update on how it's running. We believe, on paper and the homework that we've done, that it's going to be a good thing for the city because of those issues and items that he's already discussed. But our feedback to you will be periodic to let you know how the program is going. From a technical standpoint, this agenda item tonight is kind of a vote of confidence for it. My understanding is it's not required by law.
Right.
It's just kind of a good thing to do so that TCOL knows that the council is aware of this and that they're in support of us taking these steps. So it's not required by law. It's just kind of one of those good idea sort of things.
Yeah, and I was by no means coming across that I was not in support of this. I just was curious if we were stamping this approval, and maybe we don't need a stamp of approval based on what you've said, but I've heard about this for the last, 10 minutes over the last couple of meetings, and I was just curious if we were ready to pull the trigger, and this is the way we're going to move forward.
It is unique in that we already have a training division. We already have people allocated to doing a lot of these things. So it's unique to say that we'd be able to start a new program that we've traditionally been paying money for, and we already have the built-in costs for it. So that sounds too good to be true. But to answer your question, this is not a stamp saying it goes. There's still several other steps that we have to take with the state, and we're just doing this, like the city manager said, to get vote of confidence from the council, let the council know what we're looking at, the reasons why we're looking at it. Any time in between, I'll be more than willing to talk with anybody to address any concerns. Because there's still questions we have to answer to the state. We have to show up before the state and answer questions to them. So there's still other things to do in the process.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chief, that gets to one of my questions. What are the outstanding TCOL requirements that we're going to have to meet?
So we have to have our Board of Advisors, which we've already contacted. My duty is to appoint those members. I've contacted them. They have to take a course. They have to send in a bio or a resume. We're working on gathering that. Myself and Chief Fair, I think Chief Fair's here, and the training coordinators will have to go to Austin and go before TCOL to answer any questions that they may have. And so those are the big obstacles. Those are the big obstacles that we have. Most of the other things we've already addressed.
And my second question is, about the exclusivity. If we start this, is there going to be maybe times where we're sending people off to Grayson Academy over there?
There's potential. So what we won't do is conduct an academy when it wouldn't be fiscally responsible. So if it would cost us more to bring in our officers to teach a person, then we wouldn't do that. There is a piece of this that is not so tangible, and that is the ability for us to be able to instill the character and integrity that I believe our Sherman officers should have, and to be able to instill that from day one. The reality is that being a police officer in Sherman is unlike being a police officer anywhere else in Grayson County, and that is not to understate the law enforcement work that other places do. But we're a unique city, especially in where we sit. And to make sure that our officers are the caliber that we demand, to be able to get them from day one and be instilling that as the chief of police, that is not a tangible thing that I could put a price tag on. I don't think it's one person, right? So I would be willing to send somebody else to another academy if that made financial sense. But I did want to address that little piece of the deal.
And what kind of support within the department?
A lot of support. A lot of the officers are excited to see it because they are confident in their abilities to train these officers and the caliber that we'll be able to come out with.
Well, I have a question. I know that part of the reason you want to do this is it gives you more flexibility as far as when the training can take place.
Right.
Let's say you have, and also, I'm interested in the retention. Let's say somebody signs up to do your police academy. We have no way of making sure that they stay in Sherman after they go through that, correct?
Right,
We could be, somebody says, hey, I want to be a Sherman police officer, and you go, okay, I'll put you through the academy, and then after it's over, they head on down the road or something.
That's a situation that we face currently. So
Okay.
That's a part of the point is that if we paid $90,000, the reality is that we don't have all of what that money paid for right now.
Okay. It's so basically, it's going to be the same type thing, but we're hoping that maybe you build a loyalty to Sherman through this academy.
But to a degree, and
To a
then
certain
also
degree.
to instill in them the beliefs that we have at the Sherman Police Department from day one.
Okay.
Within the existing budget that we talked about, and if I misheard earlier, correct me, but you said something about, I think, a 4-month
Right.
statement about how much time it would require from an existing officer that's within the existing budget. Was that?
So that's about the time commitment for a police academy.
Okay.
But again, we have 17 officers right now, they're instructors. So over the course of that time period, and we're sure to add more, we're plugging officers in here and there because we want them to be able to teach on what their specialties are.
And from where you stand to affect having men on the street, would that have minimal or I mean, how effect on having officers on the street?
So if this would have been a year ago, we would not have come asking.
Right.
We would not have had this idea. The reality is that we have the manpower now to be able to shuffle some people around to make it a possibility. And talked with the city manager about staffing moving forward. I don't believe we'll have to add any staff for this at all, but being able to use the ones that we have. The numbers that we have in patrol and in investigations, the sworn numbers, we're giving a test a week from Saturday, and we're looking to hire our 70th person off of that. We were below 60 when I got there. And so just the fact that we have the manpower to be able to adjust schedules is, that's what allows us to do this.
It's good to hear. Like I said, that was one of my biggest concerns when I first got on council almost 5.5 years ago, was where we stood with our manpower on the police force, and know that we're back up to that capacity is good news.
Chief, I think it's a good deal. I'm curious to see how this progresses and look forward to it. And with that, I would make a motion that we,
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor? Motion carries. Thank you, Chief.
Exactly.
6352. Linda, if you'll read that for us.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman awarding a bid to and authorizing execution of a contract with Highway 19 Construction, LLC, based on an invitation to bid for construction of the Sherman Streetscapes Phase 2, 2018 project. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Thank you, Linda. Whit?
So we started this project in July of 2016, and as you all know, we've had to rebid several times. This third time, we did reach out to TxDOT and see if they had any other qualified contractors that might be interested in sidewalk work. We received 3 bids. Highway 19 Construction was the low bid at $161,000, which is actually less than the previous bids that we had received. And we actually have approval for about $500,000 for sidewalks in that area. So we are going to work, if you approve this contract, with TxDOT and the contractor to make sure we spend as much of the grant money as we have available. But we wanted to ensure that we could get this project on the books and started. So with this approval, we hope to get started early summer.
Very good. Council, any questions?
Mayor, I want to clarify, I don't know if he said 161,000, it's 361,000.
did say 160.
Okay, yeah.
Thought that was real quick.
Yeah, that would be very nice if they would do it for that, but 361 is what the contract is for.
Okay.
Move to accept as written.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Linda, if you'll read 6353.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between the City of Sherman and the Choice Partners Purchasing Cooperative, a division of the Harris County Department of Education. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
All right, so this is, this interlocal agreement would allow us to utilize the purchasing cooperative through the Harris County Department of Education, which leads into our next resolution on why and how we're going to use that.
Council, any questions?
Make a motion?
Thank you.
Second?
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Linda, if you'll read 6354 for us.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sherman authorizing the purchase of furniture and shelving for the Sherman Library renovations project from Library Interiors of Texas, LLC, through the Choice Partners Purchasing Cooperative, a division of the Harris County Board of Education. Finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed was noticed and is open to the public as required by law.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Steve?
So as you can see here, this kind of tells us where we're at on the library renovation. So we're kind of getting to the exciting time that we're kind of moving to the final phase of our renovation of the library, which tells you that we're looking at furniture. So all the furniture will be replaced in the library. We'll be utilizing the purchasing cooperative to purchase that furniture. We've already got the prices and everything. It's consistent with the original budget, the original expectation on the prices for that furniture, and we're just going to carry that out.
Questions?
I've got a question. It's the same question I always ask whenever we use the buy boards, but did we bid this out locally? And if no, is there just no provider here for this type of furniture, or?
The scope and the size of this and the unique furniture and stuff we have in there, there's no one that we're aware of. Yes, we did consider that. But there's the size of it, and like I say, the uniqueness of the furniture, we're not aware of anybody that could fill that here. Now, this particular vendor, we know through our planner and engineer, that somebody they know deals in this size of project with libraries and things like that. So it is somebody we have knowledge about. Of course, through the purchasing cooperative, we know the price is right. But we did consider that.
Steve, what is the, and I'm going to use the word, tentative date? Because I know there's a lot that goes into it, but for the public's information, when do we think the library might be ready for reopening?
As per the contract, we're looking at probably toward the end of May, actually construction completion.
Okay.
And so far into this, everything seems to be on track. We've been very pleased with the progress, as well as the budget. After we're nearing the end of construction completion, and it looks like we're going to be nearly on the money as far as the cost of that. And for renovation, that's a really good thing. There's a lot of unseen and unexpected, but I think we're going to, right now, it's anticipated we're going to be right there where the...
I know a lot of things can happen and everything, but just...
I didn't see any change orders, so.
We're going down to the wire, and we have been very pleased. It's been a 2-year project, and with as much construction going on and changes, that it looks like we're going right down, and we're still right on course. And if there was a change order right now with something without, we'll be right where we should be. And again, to answer your question, it looks like construction should be completed somewhere toward the end of May. Then that leads into some other things we'll be trying to finish up, such as landscaping, working on the parking lots and things of that nature.
So definitely before next school year, it should be open.
Yes, yes.
I know we joke a lot recently about the change order thing, but that is one of the benefits of using a CM at risk model to do these projects, is that it takes a lot of the variability out of the cost and the unknowns. Now, there are certain things that doesn't cover, and Steve alluded to it. On a 40-year-old building, you start tearing off the fascia and some other aspects. You just don't know what you're going to get till you start digging in, and so there are some things like that you can't fully mitigate all the risk out of. But one of the reasons we started going to that type of project, or that managed a project in that way, and we've done the fire station recently the same way, and we actually have another item. Next item is for CM at risk for the Pecan Grove. So it just takes a lot of the guesswork and variability out of the cost of a project. So it's worked out well for us.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve of 6354.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mayor, who was the second, please? Thank you.
Moving down to D1, contracting with, it's a request for advertisement, contracting with a construction manager at risk for construction of the Pecan Grove Athletic Complex. Teresa.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. Really excited to be able to finally advertise for our construction manager at risk for Pecan Grove West Athletic Complex. As you know, the complex will include soccer fields, baseball fields, / softball fields, concrete walkways, earthwork, turf establishment, and irrigation. That's what the CMR will be responsible for. And if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Council, any questions? Okay, any motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Teresa. All right, we are down to E1, accept annual audit report for year ended September 30th, 2017 from Madonna Lindsay and Company, LLP. Brian? Oh. Let's do it.
All right, Brian, you're up.
Okay.
If you're
Good evening. I'm Brian Grisham with the firm Adami Lindsay and Company. With me tonight is Mr. Jim Lindsay, one of the partners of the firm. Each year, the city publishes a comprehensive annual financial report, CAFR for short, which contains the city's financial statements and schedules, as well as certain general and historical information about the city. The CAFR is one of the ways in which the city demonstrates its accountability to its citizens, its debt holders, and to its grantors and others. It provides information about the city's financial condition and results of operations, as well as information about whether resources were used in accordance with legal and contractual requirements. The financial statements and disclosures in the CAFR have been prepared by management, and they have the responsibility for the accuracy and completeness of that information. A draft of the financial statements was reviewed with the audit committee in a meeting with management about 2 weeks ago, their approval prior to the issuance of the report. And we have audited the city's financial statements for this fiscal year. An audit is an independent and systematic examination of the books and records to ascertain that the financial statements as they are presented are free of material misstatement. We are required to conduct the audit in accordance with our professional standards and to issue opinions and results based on the results of the audit procedures that we perform. We've issued 3 independent auditors' reports in connection with this year's audit. The first is on the financial statements. We've issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements, meaning that the financial statements are free of material misstatement and properly present the city's financial position and results of operations for the 2017 fiscal year. The second report is required by government auditing standards. These standards are applicable when a city or a not-for-profit entity receives federal or state grant awards. These standards require that we review and attest the internal controls over the financial reporting systems and to test general compliance matters related to the financial reporting systems. Our testing found no matters involving the internal control or compliance that we were required to report. The third report is also a report on internal control and compliance. This is required by the Federal Single Audit Act, and it's required when an entity's federal expenditures of federal awards exceed the threshold of $750,000. The auditor is required to review and attest the internal controls and compliance matters related specifically to those major federal programs. We've issued an unmodified or a clean opinion on the city's compliance with those applicable requirements, with no findings and no deficiencies noted in the internal controls. Overall, the city is in good financial condition. The city has reserves of that's equal to more than 2 months' worth of expenses and expenditures. The city enjoyed improved financial results over the prior year, with revenues increasing about $3 million and expenses rising about $2 million. In conclusion, as I mentioned, the city is in good financial condition. The city's internal controls are well-designed and operating effectively. The books and records are maintained in good order, and we certainly appreciate the work by the staff in the finance department, not only in maintaining the records throughout the year, but working with us during the performance of the audit. And all the city personnel that we dealt with during the course of the audit were very helpful in completing the audit. And have any questions?
All right, we have a motion to accept the audit.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes, thank you, Brian, for your hard work.
Thank you, Mary, also for all that you do to help them out. Appreciate your department.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a great job. Great job.
Make a motion.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're down to E3. Community and Support Services Manager, Nate Strouch, regarding Neighborhood Refresh Initiative.
Does everyone need a minute to calm down, let the heart rate settle a little bit after the audit presentation? This is not altogether that much more exciting, I'm afraid. The next that we launched late last year in response to council's concerns over the state of some properties in the city and kind of working to pick some of that low-hanging fruit and make sure that we were doing our part to clean up the city and to make sure that we were holding property owners accountable for the state of their property. This is a pretty long presentation. We can get really into the weeds if you want, so I'm going to kind of breeze through it and just stop me if you guys have any questions. A lot of the beginning here you guys have already seen. Of course, it was in response to the council's priorities. We wanted to focus on trash and debris, junk vehicles, things like that. Like I said, low-hanging fruit, easy to spot from the street, things that were not going to be difficult to identify, certainly not looking for ticky-tack type of stuff. We wanted to move from a reactive enforcement to more of a proactive approach, but we wanted to do that in a way that was responsible to our staff so that they weren't feeling overwhelmed taking all 17,000 properties in the city of Sherman at once. So the other things we wanted to accomplish through this program, we're breaking down some of the internal silos of information that we discovered within the city itself, making sure that departments had tools to communicate with each other more directly to be able to deal with these programs without having to place a bunch of calls or a bunch of emails to figure out what exactly is going on. And then, of course, that last part, focusing on one quarter of the city at a time so that our staff has the resources that they need to be able to actually make an impact as we move forward. The departments that we brought in initially here, code enforcement, police, pretty obvious, the fire department, substandard structures, streets, utilities, and planning and zoning. This was the map. We aligned it with the council district / bulk waste pickup map so as not to reinvent the wheel here. So we did do October to December. That's what we're going to be hearing about today. We're right in the middle right now of January to March, which we're actually going to stretch out into about January to April because there's a lot to do on this particular quadrant of the city. But that is rolling along as planned. So we kind of went over the goals already. But how do we achieve that goals? We need to do focus enforcement. We didn't want to overwhelm ourselves when we started this out. We wanted to consolidate different databases across the city. One of the things we found when we sat down to look at this problem is that code enforcement didn't talk to police, and police didn't talk to fire, and fire didn't talk to planning and zoning, in a large part because those software systems, they were all written in different codes, and they just didn't talk to each other. So we wanted to break down some of those walls, and that's where we brought in this company, Ptolemy, which we'll get to here in a minute. Focused enforcement, what does that look like? So this is side by side the fourth quarter of 2016 code enforcement inspections versus the fourth quarter of 2017. This is what we're talking about when we're talking about focused enforcement. We are still, as you can see, we're still doing reactive work in the other council districts and the other areas of the city when we're getting reports of high grass, we're getting reports of junk vehicles. They're still going out and they're still doing those inspections, but we're really focusing our efforts, of course. In this round, it was the southwest portion of the city, and we have a pretty good way to show you what that looks like here. So focused enforcement. So before this program launched and before we were able to kind of implement some of the tools that if we wanted to say, what did code enforcement do in the southeastern part of the city between October and December of 2017? This is what our answer would look like. It was a manually generated report from Encode that's 50 pages long, and it goes through each instance, but we had no way of really centralizing that information and putting it into a interface that made sense and that you could look at and you could say, oh, okay, now I see what they did. So this is Ptolemy. This is the building blocks product that we have contracted with them to kind of bring all of our databases together into one place. And this is exactly to see the lines, but you can kind of see there's the east-west line, there's the north-south line that separates the district, and between October and November you see these pockets here of very focused enforcement. Over here, of course, which is where we're working right now, not so much. Right here, where there's a ton of problems in that area, it really gives you a good visual expression of what exactly the code enforcement and police and fire and everybody else was doing during those months. We threw a couple before-after pictures with 300 different inspections. We obviously weren't going to get to all of them, but I asked Andre and the people in code enforcement to pull just kind of some of the ones that stood out in their head. Here's a home on the 800 block of Ellis Street. As you can see, they've got stuff stacked up against the fence there in the corner. That gets taken away there. This was a gentleman who'd come out and cleaned all the trees and brush out of the 1300 block of Walnut, which is great, but then he left them all there. So that goes away. You'll see a recurring theme here. People parking their RVs on the street. It's not something you technically think about a lot when you think about cleaning up the city, but it's against our code of ordinances. So we're on the lookout for things like that, making sure that the streets are open, of course, for emergency vehicles. This is a commercial property on the 1500 block of Houston. We didn't exempt them by any means, so commercial properties were part of it too. Get the tires gone, got some siding, roofing there, that goes away. A junk vehicle parked in the yard, plus a nice little pile of trash, that goes away. This was the property that you guys just approved for duplexes earlier tonight by 903 Brewers, very overgrown, of course. Got that all cleaned up, things like that. So that's just a snapshot, literally and figuratively, of the work that was performed. We can go on about this for hours, and I'm happy to if you guys would like. I'm like over the moon about this. It's really, really cool. And it's really functional to what we're trying to do, not only in this program, but in other programs that we're trying to implement throughout the city right now. It's software that pulls together all of those different databases written in all those different codes, all those different types of different computer programs. It pulls them all together, dumps them into a map format that's really easy to use, and then it includes that with data from the county's website as well as U.S. Census block data. So it gives you a variety of different tools to be able to kind of slice and dice. We're going to go through 4 different kind of tools tools within the tool that this provides for us. The first is visualization, allowing you to kind of get a heat map of the city and whatever it is that you're looking for, be that police incidents, be that code enforcement, be that permitting, really any sort of data that we dump into the system. You can get one picture. This is what it looks like in the city of Sherman right now. The second is cross-referencing. So you can take any of those factors and you can cross-reference them against any other factor. So if you want to say, how many police calls were there in neighborhoods receiving food stamps, something like that, that would be something that would be very easy to pull up. And you can do that literally any factor that's in the system against any other factor. So it's really far-reaching. Then this part, the top-down view, is what we really liked about the system because it gives us the ability to break down those barriers between departments. It says I can type in my address, 123 Crockett Street, and pull up a holistic picture of every time that the city has had contact with that property in the last decade or 12 years, from police to fire to code enforcement to streets to anything, utility shutoffs, and it really gives us that ability. The police department in particular is excited about it because you can look at it and say, I don't want to know just what the police department has done here. I want to see everything that's gone on at this property. I want to see if they have a history with fires here. I want to see if they have a history with having junk in their yard. And there's really a variety of different things doors that we think that opens up when you're talking in between departments. And then the spatial tools, which allow you to kind of customize your neighborhoods, or as I'll show you, kind of do some distance-specific things that take us a lot of time now, but hopefully this will make it easier. The visualizations is the first thing we're going to talk about. So this is a map of every property in Sherman that had 2 or more police calls. I forget, it probably says up there what the date range was. And then it breaks it down into quintiles, and it does this in all the maps. So if you look in the upper right-hand corner here, this is the quintile breakdown. So it's saying that this is the most calls that property has had, this is the least calls, and then it's color coding those. So it's really showing you the darker the color on the map, the more police activity has been in that particular neighborhood over the course of this time.
So each one of those dots is a police call?
Yes.
The red one is multiple police calls?
Yes.
Over what period?
I don't know what it says there. I think it was over about a year and a half.
That's where the police have been called to that house,
Yes.
not someone calling from the house.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. So if they get a call from 123 Crockett Street about something happening in that block, it's going to show up. It's going to show up at that address. So the visualization tool is really kind of more useful, is, like I said, kind of a view of the city that you might not have had before. This is a different look. This is properties in the city of Sherman as color-coded by current use. So this is something that's pulled from the county records of what the property is currently being used as. It just gives you a kind of picture. Okay, here's our commercial zones, here's our industrial zones, here's our newly annexed zones. Just another way. I mean, there's 1,000 different maps I could have pulled up here. I just tried to give a couple to kind of give you an idea of what you can do with this. So we could do this across a variety of different factors. Cross-referencing. Okay, so this is code enforcement actions, code enforcement inspections, cross-reference against owner-occupied properties. So what this is telling you is not only where are we doing our code enforcement, those code enforcements as to whether that's against a rental or against a property that is owner-occupied. And that information is pulled from the county as well. So it's taking a piece from the county, it's taking a piece from us, and it's combining it into one map. The second one here, what did I do on this one? Building permits. Okay, so this is building permits according to assessed valuation. So if you wanted to say, okay, not only where is work going on in our city, but where is that work worth the most money, this gives you kind of an idea of where those permits are being pulled and how much those properties are worth. Kind of breaks out like you'd expect. Properties on the west side typically worth more, but it also shows you that there's a lot of work going on the east side, a lot of infill work going on over there as well, even though they might not be valued as much. It gives kind of that holistic picture of the city. The top addresses here, so we're not pointing fingers at anybody. This is the top-down view of a property in West Sherman that has been identified as kind of a nuisance property. So this gives us the ability to go and to look. So it gives you all the what you'd expect over here: the parcel data, the generic information, and then over here it's giving you a one-picture snapshot of everything that's gone on at that particular property by year, according to the department that had something to do with it. So then if you scroll, so I'm scrolling down here on the same page, it gives you a breakout of all 57 police cases and what happened in each of those. So that gives you, again, an idea of police, fire, code enforcement, things like that. So this is why we think it's cool. This is a totally different property. As you can see, this property was burglarized twice in August of last year, which, if you were the police department, that might be an interesting thing to know. But what you wouldn't get is, okay, the permitting. So this is showing that right before the property was burglarized, there were permits pulled for mechanical, plumbing, and electric. So it's not just that there was a burglary at this property, but that there was a burglary and the property was probably under construction at the time. So that's just a kind of a small way of showing you that by kind of breaking down some of those walls in between departments, it helps give a better picture of what's going on at any one property.
Can I interject here and just say for clarity, so all the information we're dumping in here is public information, right?
I think so.
Right, so none of it is confidential. It's much of it, some of it's internally generated by our own input, some of it is externally generated or available through the appraisal district or through the census data, things like that.
Absolutely, yes. So while all of this data you could get by submitting a public information request or a series of them, we do want to be cognizant of the fact that when you do kind of put it all together in one place, it does become a really powerful tool. So this is not something we ever anticipate being a public-facing interface. We really view this as an internal tool for our purposes, not to be able to go and look at what Nancy down the street did, why she had the cops called to her house 3 weeks ago or whatever. So yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. The spatial tools. Okay, so now we're looking at that same neighborhood where that house in question resides in East Sherman, and what I've done is just kind of drawn a random shape around some of the streets around that neighborhood and saying, okay, show me the information for all the houses surrounding this house. Like, okay, is 57 police calls really that many? Like, I don't know. So then what you can do is pull it out into a list view, and this is only a partial list. There's 116 houses here or properties that we highlighted, and you can go and scroll through the whole list and say, wow, yeah, 57 is really an outlier. And furthermore, what's going on with the assessed valuation here? Why is it so much less than the houses around it? It just gives you a way to think about neighborhoods or to think about areas of the city in really whatever your imagination can handle. If you want to define the neighborhood differently, you're welcome to do that, and then compare that property versus other properties to see, where we need to focus our efforts. Certainly, code enforcement would be something very simple. You could say, is this property an outlier, or is it just kind of a symptom of the neighborhood? This is the other thing that's really cool. This hopefully will have implications for some of our planning and zoning. So what I've done here is I've taken a random property, and I've pinpointed it, and then said, show me everything within 1/10 of a mile of this property. Or you could do, 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet for whatever purposes, sending out letters, zoning letters, things like that. So it says, okay, within a quarter mile of this particular property, there's 105 other properties. You can click on View List, and you can have a Excel formatted mailing list in a matter of about 5 minutes. That's a process that takes quite a bit longer now. So I think that has a variety of aspects too. Just kind of another example. All right, part 3 of the presentation here is kind of something that we wanted to add on because it's been percolating over the course of the past couple weeks, and it is relevant to kind of what we're thinking here. We have 3 city departments right now in our community development block grant, our substandard structures, and our code enforcement. And they are 3 separate departments managed by 3 separate individuals right now. In those 3 departments, we've had 1 retirement, 1 interdepartment transfer, and another retirement that's coming up. So of the 5 employees that are dedicated to those 3 departments, we're fixing to lose 3 of them. So one of the things we did over the course of the last couple of weeks was sit down and say, how can we rethink what we're doing in the I don't know what you categorize all these under other than cleaning up the city departments, to kind of rethink what we're doing and shift some of that manpower around so that we have more resources available when we need it and where we need it. So here's kind of the current structure up here. They're all separate departments, but when we really think about what they do on a day-to-day basis, it's really more like this Venn diagram where it's they are their separate departments. They all have their own things that they do, but there is a lot of overlap in what they do. For instance, substandard structures, a good portion of the houses that they end up tearing down are in the target area that's the focus of the community development block grant. So there's a ton of interplay there between tearing down houses and tearing down houses in certain parts of the city. With code enforcement and substandard structures, they're really doing the same thing every day. They're going out and they're evaluating properties. And when you're doing that, you're going to see substandard structures when you're evaluating code, and you're going to see code when you're evaluating substandard structures. So the way that we envision kind of reimagining this is to kind of roll 3 into 2 and to say that we're going to have our community development block grant, and we're going to kind of reimagine what that looks like, and we're going to have our code enforcement, and then we're going to have both of those areas focus on substandard structures. And the way that that's going to end up looking is right now we have 1 person in the block grant, we have 1 person in substandard structures, and we have 3 people in code enforcement. So we're only going to change that number by half of an employee. We're going to go from 5 to 5.5. But by restructuring it, what we're going to do is we're going to cross-train people in both departments so that effectively we'll have 2 people trained on the grant, we'll have 2 people trained on substandard structures, and we'll have 3.5 trained on, or 4 really trained on, 4 people, 3.5 jobs focused on code enforcement. So adding another person to that to be able to help out in these efforts to clean up the city. I think this kind of goes over what I just said. Yeah, and so the great thing about this is because of the way that the budget worked out with retirements and with transfers, we actually have the money in the budget to make this happen really quickly. So our plan is to go ahead and, as long as the council agrees that this is the right direction, to go ahead and advertise for that additional position before the end of the month, and to bring that person on and to have that additional body there to help with this program as it moves forward. So in conclusion, our goals were the focused enforcement, we went over that, and to seek voluntary compliance. We wanted to be very light touch in our cleaning up the city efforts in this first pass. We get about 80% compliance is what we've seen through the first 3 months of this program. So 80% of properties that we're sending a letter to saying, please clean this up, they're doing it without any further action on our part, so that's really good. And then our internal goals, which is kind of where the software comes in, we wanted to consolidate those databases and make sure that our departments were able to better talk to each other. And between that and the reorganization, we think that that should help a lot in that area. So moving forward, we're talking about, as we move into year 2 of this program, not yet, but 6 months from now, kind of stripping away some of that light touch and saying that if you are a repeat offender, if you're somebody whose property is continually coming up for these type of violations, that we're going to take a harder look at that and make sure that you're staying in compliance, not just getting in compliance. We're going to continue rolling out the building block software. It's about 90% where we want it right now. We've still got some work to do to bring in a couple additional databases. One of the first places we want to really roll it out is in the police department. We've had a couple meetings with them, and it seems like it's going to be a really good tool for them to be able to, like I said, kind of see some of this top-down information that they weren't able to see before. And then the restructuring departments, as we kind of went over, will help to shore up our existing programs while also expand our efforts in substandard structures and in code enforcement. So that concludes my presentation. Now I'll take any questions.
Nate, I have a couple questions. So it seems like we have a lot of information funneling through code enforcement now, if it's coming from all these other departments. Do we have the staff we need to address every single thing that comes through there? How many code enforcement folks are out actually on the streets working right now?
3. So this will move us from 3 to 3.5. Certainly if, the council wanted to put 25 people in there, that would certainly be a budget discussion. But we're trying to, like we always do, take it incrementally and move up from 3 to 3.5 to be able to see if that makes a difference.
And for building blocks, other than the police, what's where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, what's the day in, day out? How is that software going to be used?
It'll really vary by department, both in so much as that the software interfaces with the department and in so much as the departments are willing and wanting to embrace it. So for instance, like I said, the police department is really excited about it. Code enforcement is really excited about it because it's a two-way street. Sure, the police department would love to know about code enforcement, but if our code enforcers are going out there and they're about to step foot on somebody's property and tell them that, look, you got to get this cleaned up, it might be good to know if there was, a recent domestic violence incident there, if there was a recent fire incident there, things like that. So it really depends on the department. We don't know really what we don't know as far as this could help where. Because we do not have all the departments trained up on it now. We've just been getting it off the ground here in the last month or so.
Now, does that software come with a set number of licenses, or can anyone with credentials log on?
It does. It has. We have access to 15 licenses. We've already talked about that. That's not going to be sufficient, so we will expand that, and there'll be a nominal cost associated with that. But that's a Robbie question.
Thank you.
Now, Nate, part of that too would be like Public Works, where we'd be able to track brush cleanup. We have focused effort in a certain area of town where we may spend a little more time on addressing potholes or road improvements, chip seal. For example, part of this initiative, we went to Constitution Village. While Public Works chip sealed the entire Constitution Village, we also cleared off 14 junk vehicles. So really in a short period of time, Constitution Village really was cleaned up and transformed. But that, I can see where Public Works, when you talk about quality of roads, trash cleanup, lot cleanup, they're a big part of this also. That should give the council and all of us, a good picture of, you want to know what's going on in a particular area of town and what efforts are being expended on that area of town. It all ties of life.
Yeah, I wouldn't want you to think that my 7 pictures were all representative of the capabilities that even now we have available in the software, because we do have Public Works in there, we have utility billing in there, we have police, we have fire, so we do have a variety of things that I wasn't able to get to today, but certainly we can go over those as needed.
So Nate, how are you going to define who has access to this? Is it department heads, or, are you going to be sitting over there running searches on, Jason and I, and figuring out how many ambulance runs we've
maybe
had?
I already have,
Yeah. But and are those searches saved if you are sitting over in your office,
Yeah, so that to us non-IT people a lot of times that these companies use license-based formats because they really do use it as a cash cow, but that's one of their major selling points on it, is that you don't have that control over who's seeing the data if you're using departmental logins, which is why we've kind of grumbled about it and then said, okay, we recognize that probably is a legitimate reason to have each person have their own separate login.
And then the only other question I have for you is, you said 80% of the cleanup projects were accomplished through sending a letter. I had a phone conference a couple weeks ago with the company that does a very similar software, and I told Robbie about it. But they had a user interface for citizens to submit their own request to say, hey, this house on this corner has a truck in the front yard, and it filtered directly in. Is that a possibility through this software?
We have it not through this software, no. This software is not designed to be public-facing. You can make aspects of it public-facing if you want, but that's not built into this right now. We have in the past looked at companies that do that, and it has never seemed worth the cost. This is relatively cheap compared to some of the other companies that offer that increased functionality that really seek to replace workflow metrics, which is kind of what some of them do, saying that, we can reimagine how you work as a city. This is really not meant to be that. This is meant to sit on top of what we already have in our GIS system and merely give us the information that we wanted, which is, exactly what's going on here and there and everywhere.
So if somebody now puts it in on the website that there's an issue somewhere, do you have someone that automatically is filtering that right into this system, or will they be, I guess, would that be part of the?
No, so the system does not work at all like that. This system is.
I meant the system we currently have.
Is read on. Oh, our system we currently have.
Like if someone gets on there and says, hey.
Yeah, then it would just be forwarded to the correct department.
Right,
yeah.
and then they would enter it into the system, I guess.
Yes.
That there was an issue there.
Yeah, it would not be done automatically, that's correct.
Yeah.
So you get kind of to the same point, just not in an automated fashion, because presumably a complaint like that would be logged in, would be forwarded to the right department, and if that department were Public Works or Police or Animal Control or whatever we have that we're collecting data on, it would ultimately end up being a dot on here if it were the right type of issue. It just wouldn't be done in an automated fashion. And that, man, I'm way past my element talking about IT stuff, but the challenge may be this interfacing this public-facing data with our own internal tool that we're using here, because we wouldn't want, we're not going to put this on our website for everybody to go and do their own analytics on. This is a tool internally here, but it would be neat if we had a tool that could take things that are going to otherwise be a dot on our map, whatever that dot is defined by, and do it in an automated fashion instead of, a manual fashion like it is now. But
yeah, but it would be an entirely different system we would rely on. This is really meant to tell us what we're doing, not what we need to do.
What's the cost of the Ptolemy?
It's $7,500 a year.
Okay.
And did you say that the searches would be saved? Like if somebody ran a search on a person, it would say Nate ran a search on this person?
Yes, okay. Absolutely.
Okay, Nate, you're doing my district, my particular district in town right now, and I have seen some of our I don't know if they're called maintenance or whatever, but they've got the yellow vests on. I've seen them out cleaning and all and working on it, but there's a lot. And unfortunately, in my particular district, a lot of the homes are smaller, older homes that were originally, original homes to Sherman, where elderly individuals are now passing away and other people are taking them over. I'm not sure the citizens that are moving into my district are aware of what our codes are as far as in the yard, etc. How are we out on what the codes are, other than sending them a letter and saying you're violating? Do we ever notify people of what our city codes are, as far as,
Like just
letting trash blow, whatever?
mail to the city, or what did you have in mind?
Do we just assume that the citizens who are moving in know what our city codes are? I mean, I don't think a lot of, we talk, in my, most of the citizens, or a good portion of the citizens, may not have access to that technology.
Well, I will say, just from a code compliance standpoint, when something does come up that is a potential violation, we don't go whack them over the head with our government hammer.
Yep.
We give them notice. That's why sometimes it takes a while to get there. We give them notice about the violation, and usually that's all it takes. 80% of the time, in this case, that's all it takes. And so,
it'd be nice if we could somehow get the information out as to what, okay, these are our city codes. You can't have grass that is over X, whatever.
Right.
And, that kind of thing to the people in advance. And I'm not sure how to do that. Go ahead.
Deputy Mayor, to that point, the police department's working on a schedule for some social media information that we are proactive in and actually pushing out. And so we are on nextdoor.com, to where we can isolate a neighborhood and we can push information out to that individual neighborhood. We put things out just in general. But to Nate's point earlier, that a lot of the things we're looking at are, they're very obvious, right? Whether the grass is extremely tall or there's an extremely large amount of junk on a front porch in a yard. And so that's kind of the information that we're looking to assist in and pushing out, because, again, to that point of just being proactive. So I just want to step in real quick and let you know that there's a couple of avenues, just like the nextdoor.com, where we can isolate, and we can say, we want to push this out directly to just this neighborhood. And so that doesn't touch everybody, but I would say that I think we have 17 neighborhoods in Sherman right now that we're talking to on that. So there's some things that we're trying to do to accomplish that, Ian.
All right, thank you.
And I will just reemphasize that light-handed touch is why we wanted to do it this way, is because we recognize that not everybody knows that they're in violation, and we're not looking to hit people over the head with a hammer, we like to say. We're really looking to educate this first year through, and then next year, if it comes to repeat offenders and people aren't getting the message, then we have the option to move to more stringent.
I have seen area, because I have seen the people out working. So we do appreciate that. I want to give you all credit for that it is obvious sometimes when they've been out. So thank you.
So Nate, what was the total increase in properties touched based on having them in close proximity like you guys did in a quadrant instead of, because I noticed there was a substantial drop in the other quadrants during that time. Did you see an uptick there?
So the total number of properties touched stayed about the same, because our staff stayed about the same. It's really more about that focusing the effort rather than it is about driving up the numbers.
And part of our solution to increasing that is the third part of what he talked about, adding resources within the budget that we currently have to our code enforcement piece of this. So
our thought is that we're going from 5 to 5.5 FTEs, but we're really going from 5 people who are trained to do this to 7. So.
And where were we 5 years ago, manpower-wise?
1, right?
1.5.
And we're at 3.5 now? I know you said 5.5 just now, but it was...
5.5 includes substandard and the grant.
Yeah, we had 2 employees and 2 full-time employees, and one of those employees was half of the time was spent somewhere else.
And
So
and not always to use the peer group city analysis, but is there a way to find out kind of where we are with cities in our peer group, so we kind of know if we are above or below? I mean, I know harp on the code enforcement aspect of this project, but while we're talking about that, is there a way to get that analysis so we'll be prepared for next year's budget to know if we should?
Yes, we'll actually be talking about this aspect of our operations during the 19 budget coming up here. It's already on my slide deck that you guys will see this week. And we'll have that information as part of the budget workshop, most likely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
You just thought it was going to be hard to follow up, though.
Yeah.
All right. We're down to E4. Linda, if you'll read that for us.
Setting the public hearing on a proposed agreement with Westmore Solar LLC, Westmore Solar 2 LLC, for the abatement of ad valorem property taxes for improvements within Industrial Reinvestment Zone Number 03, 2018-01, City of Sherman, Texas.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Mary?
Yes, this is the resolution requesting the council set a public hearing for the agreement, the tax abatement agreement with Westmore Solar for April 2nd. The ordinance will also be, or the resolution adopting the agreement will also be on April 2nd.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Council, any questions? Okay, good.
Yeah, I move to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Linda, if you'll read E6 for us.
Site plan approval under ordinance number 2252, Article 4, Section 410-2J, to allow Sherman Fire Station Number 4 in the Blaylock Industrial Park, Sherman Economic Development Corporation owners, City of Sherman prospective buyer, Icon Consulting Group architect, and Michael Tublio, representative, 3117 Northgate Drive.
Okay. Thank you, Linda. Scott?
Yeah, the council has duty to approve site plans in Blaylock, so this is the site plan for the new fire station. Planning and Zoning Board has already voted on it 7-0 in favor, subject to the staff review letter.
Council, any questions on the site plan?
Make a motion?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, E7, Linda, if you'll read that for us.
Replat approval of Progress Park 1, Northgate Drive, Phase 4, lots 4, 5, and 6, Block 1, being all of Lot 1, Northgate Business Park, Phase 2, and all of Lot 1, Block 1, Progress Park 1, Northgate Drive, Phase 3, containing 29.8652 acres in the Elizabeth Jones Survey, Abstract Number 625, Sherman Economic Development Corporation and Southeastern Freight Lines Incorporated, owners, and Brock Davis Drake Incorporated, surveyor, 3117 and 3209 Northgate Drive.
Okay, thank you. Scott?
And this is a replat to allow the fire station as well. Board voted unanimous on it, subject to the staff review letter.
Okay, thank you, Scott. All right, council, any questions on E7?
Make a motion?
To approve.
Second?
Okay, got a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Linda, if you'll read E8 for us.
Replat approval of Ridgeview Court Estates being 19.568 acres in the William Thompson Survey, Abstract Number 1210, also being lots 1 through 15, Ridgeview Court Estates, S&P Texoma Real Estate owner, and Underwood Drafting and Surveying surveyor, 100 through 400 blocks of Ridgeview Road.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Scott?
So this is a replat for 16 residential lots, development. P&Z approved unanimous, subject to the staff review letter.
Okay, very good. Council, any questions? No?
Make a motion.
Okay, motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'm going to abstain from E8.
Okay, Councilman Sophie abstains. All right, motion carries, thank you. We are down to citizen request. Is there anyone in the audience to address the council this evening? Yes. If you'll state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mayor Plyler. My name is Sean Norton. My address is 1520 Yarborough Drive in Sherman, and I'm here representing TCOG. I just want to take an opportunity, first of all, as a citizen here, to thank you guys for your service, all of you. I have just wanted to point out that the National Service Recognition Day is going to take place Tuesday, April 3rd, 2018. It's an initiative led by the Corporation for National Community Service and the National League of Cities and the National Association of Counties and Cities of Service. And mayors, city leaders, and county officials and tribal leaders across the country are using national service more and more to solve their community's toughest challenges. And CNCS has a lot of volunteer and service efforts, engaging over 325,000 AmeriCorps members and Senior Corps volunteers in national service at more than 50,000 locations each year. We do operate a Senior Corps program at the COG, which includes RSVPs, a senior volunteer program, as well as a foster grandparents program. Provides a huge benefit to the community and the region. And I just wanted to invite you guys to get involved. I have a flyer I can provide to the city secretary or city manager with more information on this. And then as well, I just wanted to ask your permission to distribute some brochures to the council, if that's okay.
Sure. I think that'll be fine.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anyone else this evening?
You can pass them around if you, or you can do it one by one if you want.
I'm not really good about that.
Okay. All right, media questions, Billy? Okay. Down to appoint or consider qualification to boards and commissions. Main Street Advisory Board. Staff recommending council reappoint Sarah Campbell Stevens and Verna Gilbert Murnau, and newly appoint Nancy Sims to the Main Street Advisory Board. Council?
Move to accept.
I second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. It's time for council comments. We'll start with you, Councilman Stevens.
I have no comments other than to say this will be my last city council meeting as a father of one. And if I am not, you will all know why.
Good luck. Congratulations.
No comments.
No comments.
We had a pretty rough accident downtown about 10 days ago, and it was hit because it was right there in front of my office, but I got this firsthand how they both handled that situation, and it could have been could have been handled a lot differently, and it was first class on both your departments.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of go mimic off of that. I want to tell you guys how much I appreciate y'all and all the work you're doing, both to strengthen your departments there and trying to make it a better place for your employees and for the city. A couple of the guys that you guys have in both of your departments are nominated for Best of Texoma, and so they were recognized by citizen members, Billy Bob Hartsfield and Brandon Toney. And I didn't recognize any of their names, but if there's anyone I missed, I apologize. But, so that's pretty neat. They were recognized out of all of Grayson County through the Herald Democrat, and the citizens voted for them. So congratulations on that. And Nate, thank you for the work you're doing, trying to clean up the city. So we greatly appreciate that.
I want to thank and congratulate the Finance Department, Mary, the group. I was able to sit in on that audit with these guys, and that's a lot of work that they put in to get that stuff. I was like, okay, where are these numbers coming from? But, for the organization that did the audit, great job on the behalf of the city of Sherman. I'm really proud of how you guys put that together.
Okay. All right, thank you. Just a few announcements. Number one, Sherman Parks and Rec has 2 great Easter events coming up with a flashlight egg hunt on Friday, March 23rd, and Eggstravaganza on Saturday, March 24th. Both events will be held at Pecan Grove, and so if you've got young ones, please check out Facebook for all the information. Also, on March 24th, the Sherman Celtic Festival will hold its second annual gathering. The event will run all day at Texoma Home Health. We once again expect a crowd of thousands. Please come make plans to join us. Very close to announcing our lineup for Hot Summer Nights this year. Our wonderful tourism manager, Sarah McRae, will be on hand for Coffee with the Mayor on Friday, April 6th at 8 a.m. at Kelly Square, to give those in attendance a sneak peek before we release the list to the general public later that day. So please join us to hear most exciting lineup yet. I think it really is. Be sure and plan ahead for Craft the Night Away on Saturday, April 7th. Sherman Downtown Now has another great event in store this year with dozens of breweries expected to attend. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. All right, we have no executive session tonight, so if we get a motion and a second, we are adjourned at 6:44. Well, we